Hello, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I'm designing a layout for Papermaze, and I'm using this gorgeous P13 paper products collection called Beyond the Sea. And P13 is a new brand to Papermaze. Vanessa has recently ordered a few collections in, so I'm really excited to be working with it this month. I've decided to be a bit brave for this layout and steer clear of white cardstock, so I'm not using any white cardstock at all, which is really unusual for me. So for my background paper here, I've got paper number 6, which is kind of like a creamy, beigey, caramel coloured paper with almost like a diagonal grid pattern on it. You'll see it better in the close-ups at the end, but it's really beautiful and really subtle. So I'm using that for my background, and I've got a chipboard frame here from Dusty Attic. It's called Swirly Frame, I think, and I'm using that to house my photo. So I've just used it as a template to draw around that centre circle and cut my photo to fit, and I've stuck that down with glossy accents. It was quite a dainty chipboard piece in places, so I have caused a little bit of damage getting it out the frame here, so I'll have to do some repairing. But this offcut bit that it came out of, I had the idea to use some stencil brushes and brush some ink through that to try and add a bit of colour to my background behind where that chipboard frame will sit. But this didn't work very well because the bits inside the frame here were quite loose where I'd removed my frame, and they kept moving around and I had it at the wrong angle. So yeah, it was an absolute disaster. So I ended up covering most of it up. Anyway, as you can see there, it's just not lined up at all. And my brush had a little bit of black ink on it, I think. So it's not even come out a really nice blue colour. So yeah, absolute disaster there, but I'll work around that. So I've torn a strip here of one of the other patterned papers. That is number 5, and it's a really pale blue colour. It's gorgeous. And then I've got this paper here, which is paper number 1, full of seashells. So I've torn a strip, probably about 3 or 4 inches of the blue paper to sit across the middle of my layout, and just a couple of torn strips to go behind that, the top and bottom. And I love the torn edges on this because it does give the layout a really kind of rustic, weathered, distressed look, which I really like doing with beachy layouts. So I distressed the edges a little bit with my edge distressor and have coloured them a little bit with some distress ink in Salty Ocean just to add a little bit more interest to it. And then I'm sticking these strips of pattern paper together, and they will sit across the centre of my page like so. So as I mentioned, I love lots of texture on a beachy layout, and I've got this roll of Hessian ribbon here, and I'm just trying to stretch it out to make it a bit wider and a bit kind of looser with the pattern, but it just kept bouncing back, so I have to try and trim one of the edges off to help it to fray a little bit and open up that pattern. So I'm just trimming that down, and I'm going to stick some of this to the back of my paper strips just to have a little bit peeking out over the top and bottom. And I really do love the way that just lifts the layout, gives it lots more interest. And I'm just using double-sided tape to stick that to the back. And I've not gone all the way along the top and bottom, just a longer section up the top there. And I'm going to do a slightly smaller section on the bottom right. So there we go, that's those in place, and then my chipboard frame will kind of sit there to the right, but I want more texture, obviously, so I'm bringing in some cheesecloth as well, which is another one of my favourite things to add on beachy layouts. If you've never worked with cheesecloth, it's really great for adding texture and interest. It kind of reminds me a bit like cling film though. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I love the look of it on a layout, but I find it a nightmare to work with. You know how cling film just kind of wraps around itself and sticks to itself and has a mind of its own? Well, I find cheesecloth exactly the same. So it takes me a while to get it into position how I want it. but I'm going to add some top and bottom of those paper stripes there. I'm just kind of fraying the edges a bit just to give it a more distressed and weathered look. I don't want it to be a perfect cut edge, I want it to be a bit sort of higgledy-piggledy. It just adds to the beachy textures. There we go, that's how that's going to sit, and most of that ink blending I did there is covered up now, and I'll work on the other bits as well. I contemplated adding a couple more strips of this shell paper to the top and bottom of my layout, just so that it wasn't so bare. I cut the strips and played with it, but in the end I decided against it. It just didn't look right. So now I'm going to come in with a bit more, I'll call it mixed media, but I'm trying to give my background paper a more weathered appearance. So this is white gesso I've got here, and I've just plonked a bit in the middle of my layout there because that will be hidden by cardstock anyway. And I'm using some scrunched up kitchen towel, and I'm just dabbing it in that blob of gesso and then dabbing it down repeatedly along my layout, just to give it a weathered appearance, and that will just peek out behind my patterned paper strip that's going to go along the middle. So I'm not looking for it to be perfect at all. In fact, I want it to be quite messy because that's the look I kind of go for beachy layouts. And I decided it wasn't enough, so I'm coming back in with a bit more. And I'm literally just dabbing it down with kitchen towel. And then I'm going to use the excess there, water it down a bit, and add some white splatters just on top of that. So I'm really happy with how this layout is coming together. I love that weathered, distressed look that I've got going on. It's totally different to the kind of layouts I normally create. I fancied a change lately and discovered P13. I was actually working with one of their other collections called When We First Met, and really enjoyed working with it, and I think Vanessa's ordered that one in as well, so that one will be available in the shop soon. But yeah, I just really fancied a change from my normal kind of style of papers that I go for. So these P13 collections have been perfect for this. I'm really happy with how this layout came out. So I've stuck those pattern papers down across the centre now, and I've decided I want some more kind of distressed look to it. So I've come back in with my watered down white gesso, and I'm adding lots more splatters, much bigger this time, to make them a bit more obvious on the layout. And still not content with how messy it looks, I'm going to come in with some more. So these are Nouveau Mica Mist sprays, and they are really fine misty spray. As you can see, they're not saturating the page at all, but they are really shimmery. So they cast a really fine mist over the layout that just really shimmers in the light. You can kind of see it there. I've used a gold one and a blue one. It just adds that little bit of sparkle to my layout. Reminds me of the inside of Seashells, you know, when you turn them over and they're really sparkly inside. That's kind of what my layout looks like now. So this pattern paper here is paper number 7, and it's one of my favourite from the collection because it's just full of elements to fussy cut. So there's I haven't got kind of an ephemera pack as such for this collection, but P13 are great for fussy cutting opportunities. There's floral papers, you've got this paper, the one with all the shells on would be perfect for fussy cutting. So actually you can stretch these collections really far. I've got 7 papers from the collection. I've got a couple of duplicates, but there are 7 papers, and then this whole paper has given me a whole pack of ephemera that I'm going to use to embellish this layout. So it's they really do go far, these collections. As you can see, I'm just layering some of these up either side of my frame there. I've raised my frame up onto foam just to add a bit more dimension and depth, and to allow me to tuck some of these embellishments underneath. and then I'm just going to go about sticking those down. I'm just using PVA glue in a fine liner bottle, and I'll use foam pads for some of them just to add a bit more dimension. And a couple of them I'm going to sit on top of that chipboard frame. So I'll skip through most of that, a bit boring watching me glue things down, but so those ones are going to stick. I've got a starfish and an anchor that are going to stick on top. And I did say these frames were delicate. I've managed to completely rip it into two now, so I will have to do some repair work. But I'm sticking this down with glossy accents. I've got brown craft foam on the swirly bits on the back there, so you can't really see them on camera, but those are raised up as well. And I've now got to try and figure out how this bit sticks back down and kind of match it up so that it's symmetrical. But you can see there's loads going on in this layout now. So the elements I've used there that I fussy cut, I've got two lighthouses, I've got some gorgeous leaf sprigs, I've got a message in a bottle, I've got one of those I don't even know what to call it, like a rubber ring that you use to rescue people. Can't even think what they're called. Some shells, there's loads going on. And now I'm coming in to decorate my chipboard. So this is a Shimmerz paint. This is another new product to Papermaze. They're having a really exciting month. March has been super exciting. We've got new brands of collections and new brands of pretty paints. So these are Shimmerz paints. They're an American brand, and as the name suggests, they are really, really shimmery. So I'm painting this chipboard with, this one's called Anchors Away, and it's original Shimmerz. So it's a wet paint, and I've just painted it directly onto that chipboard frame, and it took really, really well. I didn't need to gesso it or anything. It's just painted straight on, and it was really, really nice to paint, so therapeutic. And I know Vanessa has some more Dusty Attic chipboard in stock ready to upload to the website. So I really do recommend grabbing some Shimmerz paints and some Dusty Attic chipboard and having some fun with those. Just coming back in with the last few embellishments now. So I fussy cut a couple of seagulls that I've popped down, and now I'm trying to think for my title. So I've pulled out some different alphabet thickers here, trying to decide whether I want white or I've got some kind of like craft coloured ones there. I was going to go with white originally, but I didn't have enough E's for my title, and because it was kind of a scripty font, it wasn't going to be easy to try and make myself an E. So I've gone with these craft ones instead, kind of chipboard, and I'm just making my title here that's going to say Sea Breeze. So once I've got those in place, I do use some glossy accents to stick them down, just to make sure they don't ping off my layout. And I'm also going to add some Shimmerz paints to these to add a bit more sparkle. So this is an Inklings, which is a hard set paint pot, and you add water directly to the pot to activate it, and then that creates some paint, and then you can just paint directly with that. So this one is called Minor 49er, and it's a lovely shimmery gold, so it's just adding a bit of sparkle to those letters there. And again, I've not applied any gesso to these thickers, I'm just going directly on with that Shimmerz paint. And the one thing I will say, if you do purchase some Inklings, leave the lid off and let them dry before popping them away, because they, if you leave them wet, they do tend to go a bit mouldy over time. So I always leave those ones to dry out before popping the lid back on. I'm just coming back in with those last two bits of fussy cut ephemera there that I'm sticking directly onto the chipboard, and again just using glossy accents to make sure they hold in place. And I've got some tiny, tiny shells here that my son collected when we went to the Isle of Wight last year. They really are tiny, so I'm just popping a few of those on there just for a bit more texture and interest, and just sliding them in around my ephemera and my chipboard frame. and I'm almost done here. Just going to finish my layout off with a couple of stickers. So this is stickers sheet number 3. I think there's 2 sheets of stickers in the collection. This is number 3 and they're small circular stickers. I'm just going to add a couple to my layout with some tangles of gold thread behind. This thread is by We Are Memory Keepers. It's the metallic gold thread that's available at Papermaze, and it just worked really well because I'd coloured my title in with that gold Shimmerz paint. It just brought in a bit more of that gold. So I'm just adding one either side of my chipboard there at the bottom with the tangle behind it. And I think that will be me finished then. So thank you very much for joining me. I will leave you with lots of close-ups at the end. Do check out the Papermaze store. There's some amazing new products in at the moment. You've got this collection by P13. There are 2 others. You've got Forest Tea Party, and I think the other one's called Always and Forever. And I think Vanessa's even ordered some more in now. So it's exciting times, and we've also obviously got those Shimmerz paints in, so do head over and have a look. But in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me. If you'd like direct links to all the products I've used, pop over to the Papermaze blog and you'll find them there. Until next time, bye!